folks. Name's Big Tom. I lived in these mountains between 1825 and 1909. During my many years of hunting and guiding in the Black Mountains, I had plenty of memorable experiences. None quite so memorable as finding poor Dr. Mitchell's body, though. Let me tell you a little bit about that unfortunate day. You see, Dr. Mitchell had been in the Black Mountains many times before. He studied nature and these great peaks. On this particular occasion, however, he had returned to the peak that he'd climbed and measured some years before to prove that he had indeed measured the right peak and that he'd done so correctly. He started out the journey with his son, but his son soon grew weary, so Dr. Mitchell decided to continue on alone. That's the last time Dr. Mitchell was seen alive. It was Saturday, June 27th, 1857. The Friday following, some folks came by my place in search of the doctor. Turns out he's heading to my place because he thought that I might show him the spot where he'd last measured the height. He never made it to my place, though. The next day, Saturday, me and about a half dozen other folks set out to find him. We did a bunch of climbing in different directions, many of which made little sense to me, but I always seemed to get outvoted. We found no sign of the doctor, but eventually met up with a search party from Buncombe. It's getting late, so I invited all back to my place to rest for the night and agree on a plan of action for the morrow. On Sunday, July 5th, we set out again. One party going to the East Fork and one to the West Fork of the King River. Despite our increased manpower, we still had no success. Much later that day, we finally arrived at the Patton House, hungry, weary, and without rations. Governor Vance, a member of another search party, realized that our situation, saw to it that we were well fed before turning in that night. On Monday, we set out again. I wanted to go back to the peak and search for signs from that point, but I was overruled. Well, to make a long story short, we searched all day without success and again returned to the Patton House tired and hungry. Feeling hopeless, a bunch of folks decided to give up the search for 3 or 4 days when the circling buzzards overhead might tell them the location of the body. I was in no mood for quitting, however. I knew that doctor was out there somewhere. He just wasn't where we'd been looking. Next day, me and 4 other mountaineers familiar with every path and road around the Black headed out. We first searched the area of ground on Mitchell's Peak where we knew the doctor had went. Then went to the trail that he'd been directed to take. Finding no sign of him, we then descended toward the south side of the East Prong. We'd not gone more than, well, I guess a quarter mile when one of the men found an impression in the moss. I was convinced that it come from a foot of a man. Most of the others thought that it might be bear sign, however. 20 steps from that impression, we found a freshly broken balsam tree with a rotten trunk. Well, I guess it's about the size of your arm. It looked to me like a man had broken it down in front of him as he walked through the area. From there, the signs just kept coming. Depressions on each side of a log made by the heel and toe of a man's shoe. More impressions in the moss, and further along the print of Dr. Mitchell's shoe tracks on a root. And soon we found broken laurels all along the path that the doctor had taken. Eventually, we came to the point where it was obvious that night had overtaken Dr. Mitchell. We could see where he'd run up on a rock and fell over a bush. We also saw where the doctor had slipped and fallen several times until finally he got into the water and began wading down the creek. I heard the falls roaring in the distance and feared that the poor man had met his death there. I climbed along from rock to rock and tree to tree, down the creek bank until I come to the head of the falls. It was there where I saw that the doctor had slipped on some shelving rock. I gazed down into the pool under the falls and saw the doctor's soft fur hat washed up on a log. Poor man, there he was. The doctor had fallen to the bottom of the pool and had died there face down. Doctor's watch was stopped at 16 minutes before 9 o'clock. No doubt the hour that he felt his death.